in conclusion, people like lists. People like, what's the top 5? What's the top 10? I'm not sure why, but it makes things kind of like, perhaps simple, oversimplifies. Your top 5 or 3 American presidents vis-a-vis Zionism, the idea of a Jewish homeland.
So you still have to go with Harry Truman. I am Cyrus, because of the recognition of Israel. That was game changing, and again the heroic nature of defying the advisors. I have to say Lyndon Johnson, as I suggested, because of his of the real strategic shift and the tonal shift there. And you can, if there's a plot line of the American-Israel relationship is like this, boom, it really jumps. And I'll throw in a third name, which we haven't mentioned, which is Ronald Reagan. Okay. Because now with Reagan, it's complicated because he often had very difficult moments with Israel over the bombing of the Osirak nuclear reactor in Iraq, over the Israel's invasion of Lebanon. But here too we get to tone, and here too we get to politics. Ronald Reagan made it very clear that supporting Israel was not just bipartisan, but nonpartisan, that it was a core American value. And Ronald Reagan often was able to get away with political failures and political shortcomings just by speaking so nicely. But he did speak very nicely about Israel, and he started creating a new dynamic whereby Republicans became very, very enthusiastic supporters of the Jewish state. And we've seen how that's only grown. So it's really interesting. We could take those 3 presidents as 3 key inflection points. Harry Truman puts Israel and America on the same trajectory. Friends forever, and special friends, the true special friendship. Lyndon Johnson puts them together in that very important military strategic alliance based on common values, based on the shared challenges of the Cold War and the Soviet Union, but really a defense pact. And Ronald Reagan saves the Republican Party from its more anti-Zionist elements and makes the Republican Party of today, which is very much a center of support for Israel, for Zionism, and for the Jewish people in many ways.
Any parting thoughts on again, how you see events today, rise in anti-Semitism linked to anti-Zionism? Is anti-Zionism anti-Semitism? How do you make those distinctions?
So, first of all, it's just a heartbreaking topic, because I grew up in a world where we really believed that we were born into the post-Auschwitz covenant. Growing up in New York, I had very few incidents of anti-Semitism, and I felt very safe. And to speak to birthright participants, to speak to young American Jewish students on campus, and to hear the kind of rank, ugly anti-Semitism that's often just echoed because it comes from the garbage of the internet, but it's there, and they're living it in their daily life, is heartbreaking. Now, as I say that, I also have to put it in proportion, right? The ugliness of modern American anti-Semitism doesn't compare to what I call good old-fashioned anti-Semitism. It's not Europe. It's not the Muslim states. It's not the Middle Ages. So we have to put it in proportion, but we still, of course, need to have zero tolerance for anti-Semitism. The fact that anti-Semitism, what I call the most plastic hatred, that it's taken on a new form, and now its most popular form and most toxic form is anti-Zionism, is very problematic, because you have these people saying, oh, I love the Jews. I'm not anti-Jewish. I'm just anti-Israel. Well, when you're just anti-Israel, you're deeply anti-Jewish. You're rejecting what most American Jews and Jews all over the world recognize as the great Jewish project of the 21st century and of the 20th century. And you're deciding that Jews distinguish between their Jewish selves and their Zionist selves. But 85% of American Jews talk about how proud they are of Israel. Most American Jews and most Canadian Jews and most British Jews and certainly most Israelis understand that hatred of one is hatred of the other. Hatred of the Jew is hatred of the collective Jew, which is now the Jewish state. And how can you say, oh, I don't hate the Jews, but I only want to destroy nearly 50% of the Jewish population of the world, which now lives in Israel? So, but the biggest problem with this debate is we Jews are busy making those distinctions. The burden of proof isn't on us. The burden of proof is on them. The great Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan says, everybody asks what's wrong with the accused. I ask what's wrong with the accuser. And so I ask what's wrong with the accuser. What's wrong with these people who are so obsessed with Israel, with the Jews, that they can't see the difference between democratic Israel and totalitarian neighbors, that they cannot see the dangers of a nuclear Iran, which doesn't only talk about little Satan. Israel's only little Satan. the great Satan is the United States of America. And the inability to see our enemies, both within the Jewish community and within the American community, is something that we really have to watch for. And learning the stories of these presidents, learning the stories of these values, learning this biblical understanding of what unites us is one way of doing that.
Professor Troy, this has been absolutely fascinating, and we can go on, but perhaps for a next interview, hopefully in the future. Again, thank you so much for your time today. Appreciate it very, very much. Thank you.
Great. And keep up the great work. Thank you.